Too much stuff or not enough? Well, I think that's what we need to talk about today. All right, so really, we gotta talk about all this stuff. People have way too much stuff nowadays. People think about stuff too much, and it's going to be a major topic for today's video is minimalism in climbing and in life. All right, so let's talk about scheduling your session in a minimal way. 2 warm-ups in terms of the actual climbs are probably all you're really gonna need. Pick some things that move you around, you have a lot of fun, and don't forget to stretch. Now, once you get through your stretches, I like to go straight into some of my hardest climbs of the day.
Slabby webby.
Now, in this case, I did a slab. This was actually a really cool flash. I was not expecting it. And as we go through some of the others here as well, surprised myself in some situations, but ultimately I was looking to get my hardest stuff out right after the warm-up. That's when I felt my best, and then slowly start working down the line.
All right, so I don't know anymore. It looks like they have a different circuit grading. I don't see like 3 or 4, 5 anymore. It seems like they just jumped 5, 6, which is cool.
All right, so I wanted to film outside, but unfortunately it is super windy, so I decided to improvise. But really good session here. I don't know, got a little harder than I was used to in the past, which is kind of a good thing. I guess the setting's gotten a little bit better, or I've gotten a little bit worse, one or the other. The scheduling, all in all today, I did a little over 30 different attempts and climbs. The idea was that I started with only 2 warm-ups. I worked my way down and kind of got into easier grades after I started off hard. So at the end, you know, and this is kind of my thing, I know some people like to do longer sessions. I haven't really found a lot of value in those super long sessions. To me, it actually makes more sense to max out, especially if you're going to be climbing the next day or day after at 45 minutes to an hour. Over an hour are probably going to need more rest in most cases. But the other thing, and the giveaway for me, is that if I am climbing below what I warmed up on, and you know, this is different for everybody. I warm up usually like V2, V3, but if I'm down to the point where I can only climb V2 and V1, unless I'm going for an endurance session and keeping that focus, I just would rather stop, have a little extra in the tank, and come back a little more recharged if I'm doing, you know, more frequent climbs. So that's just something to think about in terms of scheduling. But I guess we're all done here. This was really fun, but I want to talk more about gear. So that said, let's head back to the house. All right, so let's talk about gear. The big thing about gear is sometimes it can last a really long time. And the reason I connect this to minimalism is because oftentimes in climbing, there's always something newer, there's always something better, there's going to be something different than what you have. Does that mean that what you have is not good enough? Well, it's going to depend on gear types. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be focusing on gear that does not hang you off the wall. There are channels that go very deep into the strength of different carabiners and attachments. slings, straws, all that kind of stuff to give you an idea of what their breaking strength is and what their durability is. What I'm going to talk about though are things that, well, we use in bouldering and how long those different things last. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is brush. Now, I will say brushes, I mean, they can last a couple of years, so just keep that in mind. When you're starting off, you could just use a toothbrush, old toothbrush, new toothbrush, whatever, just clean it first. And that's honestly what you need, just having something to brush holds with. This particular brush is designed for indoor holds. Specifically, it's got a little sharper bristles and things like that. It's called an infinity brush. I don't have any association with any of the companies I'm gonna be showing. This is just what I use. And I like this one because it's really simple design. I like wood because it can take a beating really well, and it's also a little more recyclable, reusable. So brushes, they can last a decent time. Don't spend too much on them because you will lose them, especially the nicer ones. You will lose them, they just disappear. All right, now I want to talk about chalk bags because this chalk bag I bought, I want to say in about 2006. So old Prana chalk bag. And you know, funny, at the time I got it with some shorts, but it actually outlasted the shorts, the same material, and belt has lasted near that long. So I mention this because chalk bags can last a really long time, and getting chalk bags, there's so many new designs coming out all the time. Should you spend a lot of money on your first chalk bag? Should you get a really cheap one? My advice here is going to sound a little different. Get a very neutral bag that goes with as many things as you could want, especially if you're going to be a wearing on you chalk bag like this, because this, like, you know, black, white, gray, those kind of colors are going to go with all the different outfits you're going to wear, things like that. They'll also wear better over time, even if they're a little faded, because everything is going to get chalky like this no matter what. The only other thing I would say, I don't like rougher materials on the outside. I think, you know, softer materials actually perform better in a lot of circumstances. Like a bag like this, if you put it down, it won't slide off of a rock, whereas if you take something that has like a heavy nylon Cordura exterior, it's very stiff, those will go sliding straight off the rock. And that means you just can't put them down, you know, out in nature without worrying about them in some situations, which is going to come up a lot. And other than that, the big thing to understand from a minimalist perspective is that buying new chalk bags most of the time is not necessary unless you damage your chalk bag in some way. The most interesting thing about chalk bags is people don't often clean them out. You don't need to like wash it, you can, but you can just vacuum it out before putting a new chalk in if you don't want to cross-contaminate them. And I personally just like to vacuum the exterior every once in a while because that can help it stay newer longer. But again, I mean, this bag is not quite 20 years old. And you can see it's in great condition. This would keep up with any of my newer chalk bags. All right, so there's one last item I'm going to talk about, and I talk about these items, ditty bags. Now, am I a little biased? Yes. Again, I am not sponsored by any of the companies that I'm talking about today. I just really like their products. And these little ditty bags by Organic, or something similar to this, these are dang near invincible. Why do I use them? Why do I care? Well, this is one that I've been carrying for a very long time, and I want to talk about some of the things that I keep in here because this I bring between gyms, and it helps, well, keep me happy. So, one thing, this is kind of an old holdover, but I do keep a little pen in here just because sometimes a pen disappears from the front desk, you need to sign something, you never know. Okay. Advil. If I really hurt something, it's good to have some Advil on you. Not a bad idea. And on that same vein, I keep a few packets of BioFreeze in here, which, you know, you can just look up BioFreeze if you're curious about it. One other thing, and this is kind of an older version, but Climb On, right? Climb On is really good for scrapes and cuts and things like that. And then I have Rhino in here, so some kind of like Rhino skin repair or something like that I recommend. But I don't necessarily keep that in the emergency bag. That's sometimes kept outside so we can get easier access to it. Last thing in here that's important, and I think everybody should always keep one of these on them, are nail clippers. Preferably one with a little file built into it like this, because nails can get too long. Now, I've heard Magnus talking about the idea of climbing with longer nails, and I've actually tried that a bit recently. My nails are decently long. But the thing is, there is definitely a point of too long in the nail, and nail clippers are useful for that. Some gyms do have them at the front desk, some gyms sell them at the front desk, but why spend extra money if you don't have to? All right, so why am I talking about all this minimalism? Because honestly, it's something that's really important to me on so many levels. It's really changed a lot of how I approach climbing. And if you look at climbing, there are so many places that minimalism can show up, right? It shows up in the efficiency of movement. It shows up in the amount that you can carry on a wall. If we're talking big wall adventures, it shows up in the amount that you can climb in a session. You really have to learn to make it count. There's so many places that climbing shows us that advantage of just sticking to the essential. Maybe I want to reframe it that way. I've definitely heard that described that way before. Essentialism. One of the things that I think it can really easily get caught up in when you're jumping into climbing is this idea of, oh, this next piece of kit, this next piece of gear is going to make me a better climber. So why am I getting into all this minimalism stuff? Well, because with climbing, less is more. From your movement on the wall to the effort, right? The amount of push on each hold, the amount of pull, the amount of gear you can carry on the wall, the amount of climbs you can do in a singular session. All these aspects, they point towards an essentialism, that which we need, not a slight bit more. That really has helped define what I'm going to call my new era of climbing. And for me, at least, that has changed everything. It's made it easier. I feel lighter. I don't have as much hard time going between places because I have what I need, but I don't have all the excess stuff. And anybody that knew me back in the day would tell you I used to have a lot of excess stuff. I used to carry a lot of extra things. It's so important that we understand the value of the gear that we already have. And I was reminded of this recently. I went to the gym and I got there, I realized I'd forgotten my shoes. So again, not my first time with this, but I had to do rentals. And it was really cool because some of the climbs I had been projecting went. I sent them. That was really cool. In rentals, no less. I think it speaks a lot to what I've learned. Doesn't mean that good shoes don't help. Everything can help, but it doesn't replace you and learning how to climb and enjoying the process of climbing. So get as much out of the way as you can, take as little as you can, spend as little as you can. Believe me, it's gonna be expensive, right? There are gonna be gym memberships, there's gonna be fees to travel and things like that. But if you have the money to travel somewhere cool and you can rent a crash pad while you're there, I'm gonna be honest, it's probably cheaper than the carry-on fee for bringing a crash pad with you. I've had to even keep some crash pads with a friend in New Mexico because it was cheaper that way to leave some crash pads there and buy some here after a few trips than it was to be schlepping them back and forth, than it was to be taking them back and forth between the two states. And if you're going to other states like that and you want to fly, well, again, those are oversized items, so most airlines charge you for that. And it's definitely something to keep in mind. Anyway, I know it's a little bit of a long ramble, but understand that truly what I'm trying to communicate is less is more. So if anything in this video caught your eye, or you have a question, or especially if you have something where you feel minimalism has influenced your climbing, please throw it in the comments down below. If you're getting some value from my videos, I'd love it if you'd subscribe, consider watching some other videos or even like this video. All of it helps the channel. We're a very, very small channel, just getting going, but I'm hoping this message can help a lot of people out there. So thank you so much for watching, and we're gonna see you on another video very, very soon.